That's my mental and physical way of saying I'm at home, smile, be conversational, forget all my troubles. Then he told me when he gets up in the morning and he goes to work, he touches the tree, he picks up all those problems again, and then goes to work. And I said, that is so insightful because it's so easy as a dad to bring all those troubles and problems home with you.
Hey guys, and welcome to the SkilledDad podcast. My name is Zach Reeser. I'm your host. And if this is your first time joining us, I want to say welcome. As you're part of the SkilledDad Society coming back for another episode, I want to say welcome back. This is our podcast. This is what we sit down and what we do, talking with other great gentlemen, dads, and parents about things that they've learned, things that they've picked up along their journey, that they are willing to share lessons, good, bad, pretty, and ugly with us, so that we don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. We are building the manual that we didn't get one episode at a time. And I just want to say thank you for being here, whether you're new or you're coming back. And I'm excited to have this conversation that we're about to have. So one of the cool things when I sit down with other dads, other parents that are from all walks of life, professional experience, backgrounds, their own kind of childhood journey and what they experienced and some of the things that drive them as parents. And they're all different. We get to take something away. And a lot of us are in the trenches together and we're seeing the same things. And sometimes I get to sit down with somebody who not only has lived that, but also is helping in a professional way, parents like you and me figure some things out and help raise our kids on their childhood journey and our life together. So today I want to say welcome to Mr. Matt Karam for joining me on the SkilledDad podcast. Matt, glad to have you. Thanks for being here.
Zach, we really appreciate you coming. We love your show and thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. So Matt, you are hailing from the desert out in western half of the U.S. in Phoenix area. Is that right?
Yes, we are. We're coming from sunny Arizona. How about that?
Rub it in. Just rub it in, Matt.
About 74 degrees today. Beautiful day. Blessed with some sunshine. How about that?
I love that. Next time we do something like this, I'll just come there and I'll bring my golf clubs and play at some Wigwam or Scottsdale area or something like that.
Camelback, boulders. Yeah, we've got some phenomenal courses that the guy should see. How about that?
Hey, absolutely. I spent a lot of time in Phoenix over the years and love it every time I go. If it's July, I'm loving leaving too. No offense to my Phoenix listeners, but when you fry an egg on your car hood, I'm like, let's go back to some cooler weather. But
Matt, no, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you're a dad of 4. Is that right?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
You're a dad of 4.
I am. I'm a dad of 4, and my children are older now. My oldest is 30, and my youngest is 26. We had 4 children in the span of 5 years. So They are really packed together, 3 boys, and my youngest is a girl.
Okay. Well, so the one princess, she's got it all.
It is. She is, and as like anything, she has to be tough. When you have 3 older brothers, they do make sure that they toughen you up a little bit, and then I have a unique background in that also. I grew up in a martial arts household. So we taught, my dad was the original teacher. I started taking martial arts when I was 5 years old. And when our children were younger, we enrolled them as well. We would have anywhere between 200, maybe 225 children every week that we taught in our school. And I loved it. I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
And so I, not only being a dad, we've taught a lot, thousands and thousands of children, if you know what I mean. So
you've seen a lot of the personality types, the variance in kids, and also the variables and variance in parenting styles.
That's for sure. Yeah, no, it's a wide gamut, and it's really what we've learned that really just depends on so many people of how they were raised, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like one of the commonalities is most fathers, including myself, seem to raise their children in a similar way that they were raised. And despite sometimes people saying, I didn't like this when I was growing up, and I'm going to change this when I do it, and this and this and this. Even those good intentions, sometimes when you look back, you just fall back onto what you knew and what you did and how you learned, and then you do the same, And so that so
It's like the Geico commercials,
yes,
where all of a sudden they're getting, the coaches that are yelling at them, letting them know they're doing the exact same thing their parents did. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. That's it. And so it does seem to repeat itself unless you make a seriously concerted effort. I'll give you a personal example of something that I wanted to change, that I told everybody in my head I would change, and I made that mistake and didn't change it. Okay. Until I committed the mistake. And then I went forward and said, I'll never do it again. And I tried. So I'll give you an example. In our martial arts school, we were very militant, if you will. My dad came out of the Army. And so he would holler and he would this, and you had to do it this. And, there was no discussion. Well, when my boys came through the martial arts class, in the beginning, I hollered at them like my dad did me. Okay. And even though one of my boys would cry or something, I just buck it up. You need to learn to get tough skin. This is this. Well, and now I would catch heck from my wife. Don't get me wrong. But at that time, I thought I'm doing my job as a dad. I'm toughening them up, and we'll be okay. Well, it wasn't until my daughter, my fourth child, was 5 years old, and I had her in class. And Zach, when I hollered at her and she started to cry, it broke my heart. And I thought, what adult male should holler at a girl that's 5 years old, that's trying as hard as she can, enough to make her cry?
Right.
And from that point forward, I changed, teaching all children, right? And so that personal experience was a big pivot and a big turning point, because martial arts has been designed to teach discipline and respect and focus and courage. And it's designed to teach all people to walk away from a confrontation, not to make it worse. And so that is one of those pivotal moments that I remember that I'll never forget as a dad, saying, you told yourself you would change, you wanted to change, and you didn't.
Right.
And so,
let me ask you this. Even with that moment, did you ever do it again?
I did not.
Not once.
Not once.
That's amazing.
It broke my heart. Yeah. I mean, I just, when it happened, I felt embarrassed. I really, I thought, I'm smart. There should be a better way. And you use it from then on. And so Zach, no, I never did that again. That was that transformational to me. I just, now if I did a mistake and committed that other one times after, yes, but not that particular one.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, kudos to you. I think, because what you just outlined as far as the reaction to something that's going on in an emotional way is one of the top things that I hear from other dads, whether on this podcast or mostly off the podcast. That was one of the areas that pops up a lot. It's getting out there and having an emotional response, long day, whatever. I mean, you had 4 kids under 5, right?
Yes.
So you never got out of the non-sleep zone for a while. So you were rocking it.
Sure. Exactly. I'd like to tell you another little story if you wouldn't mind.
Please.
there was a dad. Okay. So at our martial arts school, one of the dads invited me to their house and said, "Hey, Matt, I'm going to be over here. I want to show you this thing I'm working on. Would you mind coming over?" I'm like, "Okay." So I'm at his house before he gets home. Car pulls in the driveway. There's a big tree in the front yard. And I see him walk up, and what's he do? He hits the tree.
Oh, right into the tree. Okay.
Just with his hand, not hard, not any, you know what I mean, but just touches it, and
yeah.
So, and we talk and we go on, and I don't think anything of it. But then, I tell my wife when I get home, that was the weirdest thing. When he came home, I saw him touch the tree, and she's like, "Well, did you ask him why?" Like, no, I didn't think about it. So then when I saw him in class, because most of our students, we would see 2 to 3 times a week. So they'd come maybe Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday, and then we'd see him on Saturday. So we saw him very frequently. Okay. And so the one day I just happened to say, I'm like, "Greg, hey, when you got home, I saw you touch the tree. What's up with that?"
Yeah.
And so he told me something that I knew I'd heard before. So it wasn't like it was the first time, it wasn't revolutionary. But I saw it in action. I saw it in practice. He just said that because he was I think a mechanical engineer, or a process engineer. Okay. And so he had 325 people that worked for him in this plant, and they made what were called light poles. Okay. So it was a very, very large facility, a lot of people pulling this time, and he was there. He was their senior process engineer. And he said, "Matt, I'm so used to dealing with adults and people all the time that sometimes I get abrupt." And so when he said what I learned to do from watching somebody else, and he told me who he watched, so I'd like to give credit to whoever did it, but I don't remember who it was. It wasn't me. He says, when I come home, all of my troubles I put on that tree.
Interesting.
That's my mental and physical way of saying, I'm at home. Smile, be conversational, forget all my troubles. Then he told me when he gets up in the morning and he goes to work, he touches the tree, he picks up all those problems again, and then goes to work. And I said, that is so insightful, because it's so easy as a dad to bring all those troubles and problems home with you. And the children, it's not fair to them.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Right.
They need their own time. They need that communication between mom and dad. And dads bring a different role to that family than a mom does in my mind. I always looked at myself as the leader of the household, so to speak, in the way of setting an example, showing them the way we should do things, interacting with them in a way that was positive for them, right? And making sure that they felt valued, right? Because our society today will minimize everybody. They don't have, a lot of them aren't proud of who they are. A lot of them don't have that internal confidence that helps them not follow the crowd.
Right.
And to instill those things, they have to feel good about themselves, And so I can give you, a couple of things that I really wanted our parents to understand. One is that children have what's called a limited learning window. And if you look at so many studies, I'll give you an example. Brown University did a study of 50,000 families. Okay. So it's not a small study.
Right.
And they learned that any of the habits get rooted in a child by the age of 9.
9. Good to
not
know.
13, not 17, 9. Right. And so when you think about it, I wanted my children to grow up with leadership skills. I wanted them to be strong. I wanted them to be independent. I wanted them to be able to do anything in their life as a career that they wanted to do.
Right.
And so in our martial arts classes, one of the things that we did, so let's say on character development, if I wanted my child to learn courtesy, or I want to learn respect. We followed kind of a proven model to help accomplish that. So let's say that we're going to do something very simple. You want to teach your children how to say please and thank you, right? So if you, in 1964, National Training Laboratories developed a retention pyramid, it's called. So if a child watches something one time, they retain 20% of that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you watch that and then have a discussion after that, that retention goes from 20% to 50%, okay?
Wow.
Which we're in the right direction. So, and a lot of times, so in our martial arts class, we would get up and we'd role play. We'd say, okay, if someone hands you this, say thank you. If you need something, say please. And then I would demonstrate, and then I'd have them do it with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that they would understand. So if they watch it, it's 20. If you discuss it with them, it's 50. And then when you have them do it with you, they get up to 75% retention.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we did is we had them do that for 1 week, 7 days. So all week, if I want my children to say please or thank you, they're going to model my behavior. So what do I have to do as dad?
Say please and thank you.
I have to do it.
Right.
Right. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
I have to do it. And
Yeah.
you'd be shocked. We would have kids, the students that would come in, and then we give them a piece of paper, right, to fill out in there for mom and dad to say, did they say please? Did they say thank you? Or didn't they? Right. And so, you know, and not all the kids would do what they were supposed to, as you would understand. Right.
Right.
You know,
right.
So they'd bring up a paper sometimes and we'd be talking and I'd say, hey, it says on here, mom says that you wouldn't say please and thank you. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'd say, okay, why? And you know, kids at that age, they just tell you the truth. There's not, I didn't want to.
Love it. Love it. Yeah.
And,
Yep.
okay, and so after the experience with my daughter, I never raised my voice to one child again. So that I really credit her for that. But so then then at that point in our school, we had little tools we could use. I'd say, okay, you know what? I know you don't like saying please and thank you. It doesn't last forever. It's only going to be 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
But would you mind if I ask you again to do it this week? Would you try? Some say yes. Some still say no, right?
Sure.
I'm not interested, right? And if they said that, guess what? They got to do 20 push-ups, right? And
so there were consequences involved.
Yeah. I would take one of my assistant instructors and I would say, hey, Jack here needs to do 20 push-ups. Can you take him over there and watch him do them? Because guess what, Zach? If at that age, if they're 7 years old, if I said, hey, go over and do 20 push-ups, half of them won't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna, they might do 3 and stop or what, I mean, it's just,
I'm having flashbacks from all the coaching in baseball and soccer that I've had. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
Right. Exactly. And so, and so the parents really, enjoyed, so to speak, using me as the bad guy. Right.
Yeah.
If I tell Mr. Karam that you didn't make your bed, I'll tell you that,
push-ups.
Zach.
Yeah.
You're going to get push-ups, right? And so, Zach, you would be shocked. I got so much pushback from parents about their children making their bed. It was unbelievable. Did you see the admiral that talked about making your bed in his speech at the graduation ceremony?
No, I didn't.
Oh, Zach, it's the most moving thing. I don't know if you guys can find that and share that with your listeners. I forget his name. He's an admiral. He was invited to speak at the graduation.
Oh, Admiral McRaven.
Yes.
It's
phenomenal.
That came out a little while ago, right? But
correct.
Yes. So I have seen that. But it's been a while and need to go redo that. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that one up.
And he just talked about helping someone at least meet a minimum accomplishment for that day, right? Yep. You made your bed. Okay. And so, I really, I guess as a parent, as a dad, one of the key things I did not know was the children had a limited learning window. I didn't know that if I wanted to teach them character development, I wanted them, I'll give you an example. We would do parent-teacher conferences. And so there was a family rift, and mom says, we need to talk, okay? I go in there, my wife goes in there. My wife's a child life specialist, okay? So she knows what stage of development for that age and how they should be acting and what they should be doing, okay? And I relied on her for that, Zach. I'd say, if they're 7, can they be doing this? Can they comprehend that? And is that the right, and if they were, then great. If they weren't, then I knew what to do. Well, this family, the dad said, we're going to go to Cedar Point, okay? Because we lived in Ohio. We grew up in Ohio, and Cedar Point was a big deal. He said, if you don't clean your room, you're not going to Cedar Point. I guess he was fed up. He was an over-the-road truck driver, and he was fed up coming home, and the beds weren't made, and the things weren't done right, and all that. Well, that boy came home. He tried what he thought meant make his bed and clean his room. The dad, of course, gets up that morning, walks in the room. It's not to his standards, and the kid's not going. Now mom's upset. It was, and so by the time they got to us to talk about it, there was already a lot of mental gyration, so many things, and everybody had something to say. And so what we ended up getting to the very bottom line is dad grew up with an image of what he thought a room should look like. He never taught his son.
Yeah.
He never showed him when he said, I want a clean room, what that meant to his son.
Right. It set the expectation, and then, and that's like vision transfer too. I mean, you take that out of our parenting, working with people on a team, people that report to you, people work with you, sometimes managing upwards. That's what makes me think of that. What you're saying reminds me, it's one of my favorite quotes. And for those that have been on the podcast before, you've heard me say it. But I believe it's Benjamin Franklin, and it's tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll learn. And it's one of my favorite things. And I use that a lot with my teens when I coach. And when I didn't do it, you get some results and it's not working. So you got to switch it up. But some of the kids are probably tired of it. That's okay. They're getting better.
That's it.
And I'll have them, I'll explain something. So, do you understand? Yes, coach, you understand. Great. Why are we doing this?
Right. Yes.
And I'll wait till they answer. Like, I'll wait. Then, sit in awkward silence. But no, I think that's
awesome.
Really, the learning window is interesting. Just by 9, because my eldest is about to be 10. So now I'm like, oh, well, I have 2 that I can do well with. He might be done with some things.
Right. Yeah. Statistically, and not that he can't learn, right. And not that, but okay. So here's the second component. We have the limited learning window. And the second component is intentional effort. Okay. So you as a coach are exhibiting phenomenal signs. You intentionally are trying to transfer that knowledge by the way you're showing, by how you're interacting with them. And you're showing them by that development, you're going to maybe win more games. Your fundamental skills are going to improve. It may take time to make that happen, but it's worth the effort, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so that's where we're at. So to get back to the dad, I used that analogy that you just brought up. I said, what happens if you were hired in at a new company and your job was to drive a truck for them? They didn't tell you what the expectations were. They never had you shadow anybody. You don't know what they want or don't want. And the first day you go to drive, the manager is on your back. How would you like that job?
Right. Yeah. You wouldn't is the answer.
You would, right? And we went right back, and that's how his dad taught him. Right. And you could tell he really felt bad about it after that. And so it was just something that, he really cared. He wanted his children to do well. He didn't know any better. And so that one incident, he said, Matt, talk about fireworks from my wife. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but
Well, I think
a
that's a
storm.
great, that's with this podcast, the whole concept of there's a bigger test that you take for getting your driver's license than there is taking home a kid. And so
Yes.
for a lot of those that are listening, I mean, 25 or roughly minutes in, and for those that listen through the whole podcast, I know, like a lot of you take away things from like your story and stories you're sharing, because we weren't you weren't shown that. And so we can show each other. And so that's why I love stories like this. I have one question. As you were sharing the story about making the bed, and the questionnaire went home for the kids, did you ever send a checklist home for the parents to see if they did those things too?
Well, see, that's the issue. Okay. You know what, Zach? Many of the times that the parents would say, I want this out of my child. I want them to wash the dishes. I want them to take the trash out. I want them to whatever, right?
Right.
Many times what we learned is they didn't do it. Okay.
Right.
And so children will mimic our behavior 100%, whether you realize it or not, or think about it. And so to answer the question, we gave the paper to the children. We always ask the parents in our program, will you support the children? And we did not want to set the standard for making the bed in the home. We wanted the mom or the dad, whomever took over that responsibility, to make that acceptable to them, whatever that might be. If they were in the military, it might be one way. If they were raised differently, it might be something different. And it wasn't, the standard wasn't the key in the activity. The key was that personal accomplishment to build your internal confidence. So even though the making of the bed might not be exactly the same in every one of our households, it was to accomplish the goal. That's all that really mattered, right? And so, so to answer your question, we spent a lot of money. Our ceilings we had a clear span building. And so our ceiling was probably 25 foot in the middle. And so we erected a soundproof wall. Okay. Which if you know anything about construction, we put 2 layers of 5/8 drywall on both sides. We staggered the studs. We put insulation through them so that our parents could talk, have a good time, but it didn't interrupt our children's experience in working out. Well, then we learned the parents couldn't hear us. So then we had to put microphones in the floor so that the parents could hear what we were doing, because the parents were engaged. They wanted to participate. Okay.
Right.
So to answer your question, we always outlined for our parents through the papers that the children took home what that activity was. And if they didn't know or were unclear, then we said, check with us before you leave. Right. And so, but they were pretty rudimentary things. Right. So we would do respect. We did a month of respect, a month of courtesy, a month of focus. And so all of those basic things, if I took the whole 52-week curriculum and shared it with you, you would look at it and say, I got it. If I say, make your bed, you get the concept, you know what I mean?
Right.
And to what level, hold the door open for somebody. Do something nice for somebody that they didn't ask for, right? One of our activities was ask mom or dad what you could do to help them, and then do that for 1 week. Whatever mom says she needs, it doesn't matter, if it's pick up this room, if it's what, and so the goal was to help the home function better. I do want to give you one example as well.
Yeah.
We had a family that had 3 children. The middle child was developmentally disabled. So he would also take class, okay, but in a different teaching style, okay, because of the physical limitations that he had. And so we had the DD side where we taught, and then we had the ones that weren't, okay. And so, but the assignments were similar. So, but mom, so the job was that particular one was ask mom what she wants you to do for every night of the next 7 days. We asked mom to make it no more than 5 minutes, but hold them accountable. Just ask them to do it. Remind them if you have to. We don't want you to by the end, but help them accomplish that goal. Okay. Well, we come to the end of that 7 days, and mom comes to us and says, his first name was Jacob. And she's like, Jacob is acting up like he's never acted up ever. And I don't understand what's going on. And I said, well, mom, you know best. Keep an eye on him. If you see it continuing, then let's address it. But maybe he's having an up and a down, and let's just go for it. Well, a week after that, he was the most disruptive he's ever been in his whole life. And she says, if this doesn't stop, we got a problem. Okay, we're going to talk. Here's what happened. Mom gave the oldest one the 5-minute job. Mom gave the youngest one a 5-minute job. But guess what? With Jacob in the middle, she didn't give him a job.
Oh, interesting.
She said, I think Jacob is dealing with enough issues on his own. He already struggles with these physical limitations. And I don't want to ask any more out of him. When he comes home, I just want him to rest. So we had a parent meeting, conference. And so I then approached Jacob and I said, Jacob, you're a good boy. I said, you work so hard. I said, why are you acting up for mom? Because you've never done that before. It doesn't make sense to me. He says, he looks away from me and looks at her and says, Mom, do you love me? Mom was so taken back. She's like, what are you talking about? He says to her, you gave everybody else jobs to do in the house and you didn't give me one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mom thinks she's doing a good thing. Mom thinks that, he already has too much on his plate and he doesn't need any more. He just wanted to be included with the other kids.
Yep.
And so it was a well-intentioned mom had no malice in her heart, right? To the contrary, she actually had more of a sweet spot for him than any of the other children. And it kind of backfired on her. And she left that night. Now she was upset, when he said that, she started to cry, but she left that night telling me that she learned more that night than she thinks she's learned in the last 5-10 years, that she had to treat him the same. And that, and so it just was, sometimes the parents today don't understand the value of having children help and participate in the home and the development.
Yeah.
Yes, it's easier to do the things yourself. Is it easier for you to wash the dishes? Of course it is. Take out the trash, you can done, boom, out, gone. But if we want to develop our children into leaders when we're not with them any longer, right? All of my children, once they started to leave the household, that's when the real pain comes at.
Right.
You see them suffer, you see them in pain, and you can't help them.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they're still under your roof and you can guide their behavior, you can answer their questions, and you can help them. Does it hurt? Yes, but it's pale in comparison, in my opinion, until when they get to be 30 and you see them in pain and there's nothing you can do. Right.
Right.
And so the time to build that foundation is when they're still in your home, when they're still with you. You can help teach them. We always call them teaching moments. Okay. So so what sport do you teach or coach?
Currently baseball.
Okay. So yep. I've never played baseball. I know zero about baseball. Okay.
Well, come on. We'll have you on the team. Let's go.
Okay.
You're welcome to join, Matt.
I love it. Yeah, I'd love to be there. So can you give me an example, Zach, of a common mistake that new players make that you see regularly?
Well, at this age, so this is 9 and 10-year-olds.
Sure.
I started at age 5, but I mean, probably the biggest common mistake. Wow, my brain is going through a lot of them. I'll just pick one. A lot of times, especially coming from playing baseball, it's power in the throw and the form, because if you're not going to learn this right and you throw this way the rest of your life, you're going to burn your arm out and you're going to actually injure yourself in time. So we're going to go with that.
I love it. Okay. So that's the mistake that you see them making. Do you let them keep making that mistake? Don't say anything. Or do you put the effort, the TLC, into it and tell them they're making a mistake? And do you show them the right way?
Yes.
Why?
I step in because as a coach, not only as a coach, but as a little league coach, and I get passionate about this. It's my job to help them have a fun season, but also learning and build off the strong foundation. And so I don't want them to injure themselves in the beginning. I want them to get better. It benefits them, benefits us as a team. And so if they keep doing the same mistake and I just let them go, I'm essentially neglecting them and the team.
I love it. I love it. That's the key. You care enough as a coach to worry about their future, their longevity, getting injured, and being able to continue to participate in a sport that they love, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with parents. If you see your child making a mistake, meaning you ask them to do something, they roll their eyes, they fall on the floor, they do this or they do that. Do we just let them keep doing that as a parent, right? So this is the discussion we would have with many autistic parents. The child, let's say, is adverse to touch. The child is adverse to a loud noise. So the parents, instead of working on that with them, they just avoid it. We don't do it.
Right.
But that's not life. Someone in life is going to holler. Someone in life might touch their shoulder.
That's
right?
absolutely right. Yep.
You're not teaching them the coping skills required to be successful in life. Okay. And so those we call teaching moments for parents. As a dad, I welcome the times when my children did not respond correctly. Most are the other way around.
Right.
Most parents are saying, Johnny's going to blow up, or Johnny or Susie's going to do this or whatever, Me as dad, I'm excited. I'm like, I know what's going to happen. We're going to bring this up. This is going to go on. What, right?
Right.
And my wife would laugh at me. She's like, well, you already know what's going to happen. Why are you going to do it? It's because I love them. It's because I care about them. And I want to help them learn how to cope in that situation so that when I'm not here, they can handle it on their own.
Right.
And it requires those reps or you don't learn it. Right. And so that's the third point that I was hoping that we could cover is that those parent teaching moments last forever. I'll give you just a short, quick example, and then, I think we're good. But we had a young girl. She was 8 years old. I don't know what she weighed, but if she weighed 40 pounds, I'm shocked. Okay. She was the cutest little thing. They had to break a board for their test. So I swear the board weighed more than she did. She practiced. She worked hard. She went to break that board, and Zach, she couldn't do it. She starts crying. She's in the middle of what we would call as a promotional test. So all the parents are there. Everybody's watching. Everyone's doing their stuff. She can't break it. So she can't get her belt. She can't earn her belt.
Right.
So dad's upset. Mom's upset, and everybody leaves. And then, we come back. And so I told mom and dad, we had a parent conference about it, and I said, hey, if you think because she's so small that she can't break that board, maybe we need to modify that requirement for her. Okay. You know what her dad said to me? You're not changing nothing. Till she can do that, she's not going to earn her next belt. The next test, everybody passed her up. She still couldn't break it. But at least she wasn't at the test, but she couldn't take. Bottom line is, by the third time, She finally got it. Her dad, she's now in college. Her dad, all the way through high school, she played golf. He used that example. You didn't think you could break the board. It took you all that practice. You finally did it. It built that confidence up in her. So those teaching moments can be used, done in the right way, for the rest of their life to build their confidence. And so that's
it's such a key story right there, because I think we referenced it earlier, but life doesn't necessarily alter the rules for us because we can't break the board.
correct.
In this case.
Right.
And I do think that there's, so in this podcast, we focus on the things that we can do the things and skills that we can build and actions that we can do so that we can go and equip the next generation for success, which means we're going to learn so that we can then go and transfer that and show it and do it. So that when they're gone, fly from the nest, whatever you want to use, that they're able to go into a world where we're not there. And that's I applaud that dad. It's hard though, right? It's hard to, the example that we had is doing infant swim resources, ISR swimming, which is basically survival swimming for kids. And you can start them super young, and their final test after lots of flailing in the pool and learning how to roll over and breathe, and they go in and they throw them in the pool with their clothes on, and you're like, my kid is going to drown. Like, can you grab them? You want to internally, you're like, can you get them? But you're like, this part of the process. Part of the process is give your mantra, because they're right there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then, they flip, they do all the things, they swim to the side. And so now, even not in adulthood, they fall into a pool, and I've seen it happen. They flip over, they know what to do, and they have been equipped. But the point of me saying that is, even for that dad, I can imagine that watching that, there's disappointment, and potentially embarrassment, right? If everybody else is being promoted, but yours is not.
Yes.
But to stick with it and be like, no, like, let's help her get stronger and succeed so that she's doing it, not me. That's awesome. I love that story.
It was incredible, And so that's those teaching moments, just like you talk about having that child in the water. Zach, as dad, or now grandpa, I'm a grandpa now.
You've been promoted.
I've been promoted. It hurts your heart. You want to do it for them. You want to jump in and rescue them. And as your example, Zach, they wouldn't learn the skill if you did. And so, but it doesn't make it any easier as dad to watch it, or grandpa to watch it. So it's painful.
Not always somebody that's going to jump in and rescue you. So
no, there isn't. That's for sure.
I love it. No, I feel like there's so many stories that you've seen and been part of, and I just want to thank you, not even for like being on the podcast, I will in a minute, but for being somebody that has been in the lives of so many kids and parents, and stepping in and helping coach both. Because I can remember, and I know a lot of my buddies as well, we think back and we think about certain coaches that impacted us, certain people that were in our lives that made a huge difference, which is why I'm passionate about making sure my kids are surrounded by other people that aren't me, that are trustworthy and good role models, because they'll make a huge impact. So thank you for what you and your wife have done, and stepping into those lives and leading a lot of people. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for saying that.
I know there's so much more, and what you and your wife are doing, you're continuing to help people. So where can people find you to learn more? I know Black Belt Bruce program that you've got is out there. We didn't even talk about that, but I'd love for you to, share a little bit about that, and then also where people can find you to learn more.
Well, sure. Yeah. No, thank you for that. It's just been a mission and a passion of ours to equip children to be successful and leaders. And so now that we're getting older, I don't spend time teaching in the school like I used to. And, I guess we all retire at some time. So what we did was we took what I would say is an instructor in the front of the class, and we put it to characters. So the teacher, we had the students pick, is an alligator. Okay.
Nice.
So
Nice.
he tells the story talking as an alligator. There's a hyena and a zebra, and it's the students in the class. And so they're just cute ways of helping the children earn and develop those skills that we want them, as all parents want them to have. And so if you go to blackbeltbruce.com, it's real simple. There's a video series. And if you go into YouTube, we have Black Belt Bruce Club, and there's probably, 40 free videos on YouTube. So you can watch with the kids, have a discussion, and have them practice them with you, And so if you want a more formal way, you can go on and enroll in the website, but you don't have to. So it's just a resource that helps you bond with your children, make sure that they have a duplicatable path, that they learn the fundamentals. Takes about 1 year to develop that base underneath them, and then they can accomplish anything in this world. And so that's all it is.
I love it.
Yeah. But thank you, Zach.
I will include the links to both in the show notes of this. So if you're listening, you can just go find it. If you're watching, you'll see it. But Matt, thank you so much for taking your time and being on here, just talking with me. And I've got some like mental notes that I'm ready to rock and roll. Cause I'm like, okay, here's some things, I always have some great takeaways. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Zach, thank you for having us. And Zach, thank you so much for doing what you're doing, right? Being a dad is hard. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you're making a great resource for people to use to improve their skills. So I have to say the same to you, Zach. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
Hey, thank you.
So valuable.
It's an honor, and I appreciate it. And I get to talk to great guys like you. So hopefully we can get together again in the future. Maybe get your wife on here. I'll bring my wife, and then we'll,
love it.
Like I told you before we press record, we can see
Yeah.
if there's any eye rolls that come along in the conversation. So
That's always possible. If we're doing our job well, we might get a few, Zach.
we might. Well, thank you again, Matt. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Zach.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you made it this far in the podcast, I want to say thank you. Thanks for being part of the conversation. I love hearing the stories that Matt had, and especially when he's looking at his experience and working not just as dad, but seeing kind of being a bridge in some ways between kids and parents to help them understand and communicate with each other in a different way, because he gets to see a different side of them. If you're a baseball coach, you do that, or a soccer coach or tennis coach, whatever, you have an opportunity there, and it's super important the role that you play. There's several things that we talked through that I think are just so key to remember. So go through, check out SkilledDad.com. You can see the additional notes and ideas. But one of the big things that I had taken away is just a reminder of, Matt said being a dad is hard. And it definitely has its moments. It's also one of those things, like if we're in the water, right, and we feel like we need somebody to help get us out of the water, hey, there may not be anybody coming if we don't have them around us. But if we have other dads around us and we got some stuff that we're facing, then, we got some swimming buddies. So whether you're here joining the podcast, you're going to the YouTube channel, YouTubefordads.com. We're just glad that you're here, because you don't have to swim in the water alone. And we can then go and take advantage of this 9-year habit window. Start making your beds, boys. 9-year habit window that we can be around for this whole time, so that when they're not with us, they're ready to go. Nobody's going to do it for us. And if they are going to do it for us, we got to make sure we're wanting those people to be the ones to do it for us. So let's take control of that and start doing our part. I know all of you guys are. You're listening to this podcast at 50 minutes in, and that's why I love this group. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, but most importantly, hope you took some things away that you can take and apply to your life and your journey to becoming the skilled dad.